All right. All right, so I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to share this one. All right, so can everyone see the PowerPoint presentation on there?
I can see it.
Okay, wonderful. Excellent. All right, so I have a couple of handouts that I've put in the chat, so feel free to download those. I'm sure they'll have some way to get handouts, but I just thought it'd be better to just give them to you here as well. So, and we have, did they tell us what time we're ending now? Probably 45 minutes or maybe a half hour. Well, I think we can do it. So my name is Rachel Coleman and welcome to the treasurer training. I said that it was going to be the most fun treasurer training ever, and now I'm feeling like I might have oversold it, but I'm going to try my best. So I'm just hoping I didn't do a little false advertising, but I think we can do it. I think it'll be pretty fun. So again, my name is Rachel Coleman. I'm a newer treasurer for Minnesota PTA. I took over, I'm finishing off someone else's term. So the reason that I enjoy being a treasurer is because I think it's a really fun challenge. As Mrs. Waltz was saying today, you know, it's a good opportunity to be a learner now, and we're all, you know, trying to be lifelong learners. And I thought this would be a fun opportunity to learn some new things. Amber Hoffman is also on this training here, and she is our Minnesota PTA office manager. And so she is super knowledgeable. And one of the main reasons I wanted her to be on this workshop with me is because she gets all of the questions a lot. Well, I mean, I get some of them, but she answers all of the unique questions we get from local units. A lot of them are treasurer questions, and she gets a lot of unique ones that are, you know, super strange and things like that. So she has a lot of knowledge, and so it's kind of.
I'm trying really hard not to laugh when you say that. I mean, so just to kind of give you guys a little bit of background, I came from a small PTO. I have zero background in finance, and I have learned by fire over the last 8 years I've been involved in PTO and PTA. So, and I know a lot of questions, I've gotten a lot of questions from some of you. So I'm excited to get going, except I'm a little bit disappointed that Ringo is not snoring in the background because
So
I haven't heard it yet.
He'll be there soon. So I have a dog that snores really loudly, and so you'll hear him in the background. So if you hear someone snoring, it's not one of your fellow attendees that's doing terrible, you know, that's really hating this. It's just my dog, and he's very loud. So anyway, Amber's gonna jump in at anything I miss, or if I tell you something wrong, she's gonna jump in. So I just wanted, and I kind of wanted to start just by letting you know that we are definitely not the PTA police. We're to help. Please don't leave here thinking that you have tons of things you need to do. If you aren't doing all the things that we tell you you're supposed to be doing, this is just an opportunity for improvement, and that's okay. This is a pandemic. Be patient with yourself, be kind to yourself. You're a volunteer. You know, we have to be, you know, I mean, you have to take care of yourself. So, I mean, I don't want anyone leaving here freaking out. It's just an opportunity to do the things that need to be caught up if you weren't aware of them. But certainly, you know, if you say something here that you're behind on or something, Amber and I are certainly not going to like write it down and hunt you down or something. Like we're all here to learn and you know, do our best. So so with that, does anyone have any questions before we start? Okay, well, let us know as we go. Feel free to just jump in too. And we do have a lot of time for questions at the end. Oops, I have to actually go to the, okay, so this is like the standard workshop slide that they've put into place. I think you can, oh, I was supposed to record this as well, so I should probably start that. Oh, Amber, I forgot.
I got your back.
Did you already start?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. All right, I failed already. See, so many opportunities for improvement here already. So I think this is just basic things, but feel free to jump in if you have a question. We aren't too big of a group, so I think if you want to just interrupt me, feel free as well. All right, so here's what we're going to kind of cover today. So the first thing I wanted to cover is sort of the purpose of the treasurer, what your required responsibilities are, some best practices, what Minnesota PTA kind of sees as the fundraising rules of thumb. I'm going to briefly touch on insurance, excuse me. And then we have a ton of resources. And then I wanted to leave some time for Stump Minnesota PTA. And as far as resources in that link that I sent, there are a lot of resources. And then I also included some in here. And I included the PowerPoint presentation as well. And I've included hyperlinks in that presentation to a lot of resources as well. So hopefully that will be helpful. All right, so I wanted to start with an overview of why the treasurer is so important. So, PTAs are 501c3 nonprofits. So these are organizations designated by the IRS for public purposes. They're allowed to collect donations, and they're really designed to provide public value. The board of directors, which you're a part of, or the treasurer is a part of, is a steward of the mission and resources of the nonprofit organization. So the board of directors doesn't own anything. You don't own the nonprofit. It's not your organization. You hold those resources in trust on behalf of the public. And so among your responsibilities as a board member is to provide transparency and accountability and to practice sound financial management. So those are kind of some key pieces. So I like to think of the treasurer as being a really key member of the executive committee. So don't tell the presidents out there, but I think the treasurer is pretty darn important. And just an important thing to think of, or something that I think is really important for kind of all of life, but also for being a treasurer, is that where you spend your resources, that means your time, your money, any kind of resource you have, those are your priorities. And I think that's a really important thing for the treasurer to keep in mind, is that, when you look at where you've spent your money, that was your priority. And so, just keeping that in mind, your overarching ways that you're spending your money and time and things is really a key consideration of the treasurer. And sort of the treasurer, it's a responsibility of the whole board, but the treasurer kind of is the leader in that for the board. The purpose of the PTA is listed in the universal bylaws. So, we just went through some updates to the universal bylaws, and I've hyperlinked it here. Take a crack at those, crack them open. It's a fun, like, Friday night activity with a glass of wine. It'll be, I said there was fun. There's bylaws in this presentation. So, the treasurer's key responsibility is to assure that the financial resources of the PTA are used for the purpose or the public value that's set out in the bylaws. So I read the bylaws for you, but this is what it says in the bylaws is the purpose of the PTA. This is what Ms. Waltz was talking about. She read them too, but this is our purpose. So you can't use the funds for any purpose. You have to use them for the purpose that you told the IRS you were going to use them for.
Can I add to that, Rachel?
Yeah, go ahead.
So when a PTA initially becomes a PTA, what you're doing is you're filing articles of incorporation with the Secretary of State of Minnesota. And so when your PTA initially started way back in the day, or maybe just recent, you would have filed those articles of incorporation, and those state your purpose, as well as Minnesota PTA, when we filed with the IRS, have a designated purpose. And so as being a 501c3, we're also classified as a 509B class, and that determines what kind of advocacy that we do. So it's really important, like Rachel was stating, is to know that you have a little bit of a bubble that you have to stay inside of when it comes to how you're using your funds.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, and this is kind of what you're allowed to use them for, is sort of laid out here. I mean, there are lots of other public things that say that, but the bylaws are pretty specific as well. That's like a good place to go back to. All right. And so I just wanted to add in here so you had them and an easy access. So again, we have universal bylaws that cover all of our units. That was passed in 2018. And it makes it so that it's simple. You all have, every unit has the same bylaws, and then you can update your own standing rules for your unit, and then you just submit those one time, and then you can update them whenever you want. So I'm the president of a local unit. We, in our standing rules, we put things like the days that we meet, some other things like that. So then if we decide Mondays don't work for us anymore, we don't have to update our entire bylaws. We can just do a simpler version of that and update our standing rules. So, but we've got all this information on our website. So I included links here. Oops, I'm getting ahead of myself. All right. So basically when you read the bylaws, which I did, woo, it lays out the treasurer's role. And like, most treasurer positions, the bylaws have three kind of key areas that the treasurer is responsible for. So these three areas can be kind of summarized into internal cash controls, which are control over your unit's finances. So like, how do you control that money, make sure that it's safe and accounted for? The second one is having a financial plan. So that's basically your budget. Like, how are you going to use those resources in a way that has been planned for, and that the board has made decisions on, that kind of thing. And then the third category is reporting on your financial activities. So this allows your board to make informed decisions because they know what resources you have, what resources you don't have. And then it also allows for transparency to the membership and public. So again, we're a public organization, so we need to have that transparency. So everything in the bylaws, everything that you kind of will see required of treasurers, everything is trying to get at one of these three categories, and it all has a purpose that falls into one of these. It's not just asking you to do busy work. It's really for one of these three reasons. All right, so again, the must-do things. The first is read those universal bylaws, but I read them and these are kind of the things they say. So the first is that you have to have custody of the funds, so you have to have banking. You need to have a budget, and then the treasurer should make disbursements according to the budget that's adopted by your unit. So you need to have a budget, and you need to make disbursements, as your executive committee determines are appropriate, but also in accordance with that adopted budget. You need to have 2 signers on checks. Typically that's the treasurer and one other person. This is for like separation of cash duties. We don't think you're going to steal anything, but it does help keep honest people honest. It helps with that transparency piece. It helps everyone know that, people are treating the finances fairly, and that no one's doing anything, that no one can accuse anyone of anything. It also says that you should present financial statement at meetings. It doesn't really specify what we mean by a financial statement. I just put kind of generally what a financial statement would include. So typically that would be a statement showing how much revenue you had, so how much money you had coming in, how much your expenses were. Typically that would be like a line item, so it would list out kind of what types of expenses you had, what types of revenue you had. Typically it would show how much you budgeted for those types of items and how much you spent, as far like how much you've spent versus how much you budgeted. And then it would typically show how many assets, what your assets are. And assets would be like how much cash you have. Typically for PTAs, their main assets are just cash that they have. And then liabilities, typically PTAs don't have a lot of liabilities. I don't know, Amber, if you've seen, I don't know if any of your PTAs have a lot of liabilities. Oh, there's Ringo. Ringo is very passionate about balance sheets. Yes, I know. Oh, very fun for Ringo. He loves accounting.
There are some PTAs that do have liabilities. They're far and few between. And some PTs, I imagine, out there do have liabilities. They may not even know it.
Sure. So those are kind of what I was thinking would generally be what's on a financial statement. It's a little bit tough to come up with one specific thing that you'd include. The bylaws are kind of flexible on that. They're also flexible on this next one, which is a financial review. It says that you should have the accounts examined annually or upon change of officers by an auditor or an auditing committee. And so that can be an internal financial review, or it could be an auditor, or it could be something in between. We have some PTAs that have a lot of revenue, or they have a lot of money and assets and things, and those PTAs really should have probably a more robust financial statement. They probably also should have a more robust audit. Maybe they need a full audit. They might have a CPA that helps them. I know I'm the PTA that I am the president of. We're a Title I school. We making $2,000 is an extremely successful fundraiser for us. So we, an internal financial review for us is pretty much all that we need. So, it kind of depends on your unit and your situation, but you definitely, that's something you can add into your standing rules based on what you think works for you. Does anyone have any questions so far?
They're so quiet. I'm wondering if they're able to unmute.
Any questions? Are we bored yet? Okay. Oh, Bang raised your hand. You can just unmute, or do I have to unmute you?
I think she got it.
Yeah, I think I got it. So I'm a new treasurer that started during a pandemic year.
Sure.
And still kind of learning how I'm doing. And like the budget this year completely different from years past, which kind of makes it difficult for me to kind of figure out like if next year is going to be in person and we're going to do some more things in person. I'm trying to think about like how to adjust the budget for the next year. And I'm wondering if there are like templates that I could look at, that the Minnesota PTA offers for me to kind of learn about how do I create it myself.
Sure. So I do later in the presentation have some budget templates and things. I think though that, and maybe others on this training will have some ideas. I think that the challenge is that you're in a pandemic and it's just hard, right? I mean, I think that you're gonna need to, like the part that's challenging, right, is figuring out how we sort of come back from this and what things we're going to do, what things we're not going to do. Are we going to be fully back? I think, the thing to keep in mind with budgets is that they're flexible. You don't have to come up with one and stick with it the whole year. Your board can adjust the budget, at a meeting. So you can come up with a, with a proposed budget. I know Minnesota PTA this year, we had to make a lot of cuts because membership has been down. And so we really looked at a lot of different scenarios and kind of said, okay, what are the areas where we could cut back? What would we do if we sort of had this level of funds or that kind of thing? So I think, you kind of just need to think about like what your priorities might be. And maybe you think about it and, we're going to look at this quarter or that quarter. But I don't know, is anyone on this call? I mean, I can give you some tools for what budgets look like and things so that you have those tools. But does anyone else on here have any strategies for how you're approaching your budget for this year and next year?
This is Emily. I'm at Normandale Hills Elementary in Bloomington, and we have really good historical records, I guess. So my plan, we haven't addressed this yet, is to go back about an average of 2 to 3 years and look at, because ideally we would love to repatriate everything that we had to drop this year, knowing that, that may or may not happen, but that's going to be our starting point, is to go look at our budget from a couple years ago, make some adjustments on this year. We've increased our what I like to call passive fundraisings, like restaurant fundraisers and stuff that I see us continuing. So, some of our fundraising goals might change compared to our old budgets, but if you have access to previous year's budgets, I would definitely start there. You can always like redline things that you decided are not coming back, but that way you don't have to start from scratch.
Yeah, that's a good suggestion. Yeah, and I think also maybe, I think meeting with your principal might help as well, or if you don't have those records, kind of finding out where they're going to be. And I think some of the schools' budgets have changed as well a little bit, and maybe certain things are being covered now, certain things aren't. So it's a little bit, that might help as well. I'm sorry, my dog is so naughty. He's supposed to be snoring.
Ringo is just very excited about treasury stuff. That's all.
He loves treasurers.
I'm just going to offer one helpful thing that we did as well, especially going into our budget this past year. And as we're looking ahead for next year is kind of what you said before. I think everybody's kind of done a reset, and we've even looked at our PTA and the same thing from our financial resources to the commitment level we can get for volunteering. And just realized it's okay if we can't do exactly what we did previously. Fundraising is going to look different probably for a while, especially if you do things like silent auctions and things that depend on donations. And people are just, don't have the means to give as much as maybe they did. And I think we really like certain things, like we give our staff, classroom money, and we've just said we just had to cut that by 40% this year. And it's okay. Like, we're still giving them something. We just can't give to the level that we did. And I think just almost that mindset that, it may not go exactly back to what you did, and that's okay. Maybe the new path forward might be even better for your PTA, and you're doing the best you can. So I think it did help us a lot, where you feel like you might have to cut things or reduce things, but in this time, still being able to do what you can, even if it's at a reduced percentage, kind of helped us, and I think even the staff appreciate things. So if that helps at all.
Thank you for bringing that up, because I hear that a lot from PTAs. They're frustrated because they feel like they're expected to fulfill certain needs at the school. And it all comes back to what you said, capacity. What is your capacity as a PTA to be able to fulfill some of those commitments? But the thing is that your entity is completely separate from the school, and you have to remember to go back to those basic, purpose of PTA and what are you there for? That slide that Rachel had shown is that your purpose may be different than some of those expectations that maybe the school has, or the path that the PTA has taken previous. So if you feel like you're in a place where you have to make cutbacks, grounding yourself back to the original purpose of the PTA is a great place to kind of just do a fresh start, so to say, and just kind of review everything and say, okay, what can we do? What is realistic in a COVID world, and what is realistic for the capacity of volunteers and fundraisers that we host, because you truly can only do what you can do, and trying to put yourself beyond that is sometimes just way too much. So thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, and that was one reason why I put on the previous slide up here the one about where you spend your limited resources is your priorities. And so really looking at that, like, where are things in your budget going, and if they're not all going to what is your priority, if they're just going to like things that, I mean, maybe they are your priority, but I mean, really kind of focusing in on that and saying, we can't spend it on everything, and that's okay. And I agree. I think it's not going to go back to the same for a while, and that's okay. I mean, I think everything's changed so much. I think it's okay to change. I mean, I think everyone's getting so used to change. Why not do it now? I think we're good. All right. So I don't want to cut off the discussion, but I also have to get to my exciting government forums. They're next. Ooh. Ooh. Okay. So this next slide just talks about the records you're supposed to keep. So, you're supposed to keep accurate records and, receipts of your expenditures and things like that. The bylaws talk about that. So the next slide that I wanted to just mention is the filing of the 990 form with the IRS. So this is basically when I was talking about how you have to have, transparency and things. There are some forms you have to file to maintain your nonprofit status. Remember when I was saying, like, it's a pandemic, cut yourself some slack. Like, this is not the area where you cut yourself some slack. You need to file the 990. The real key here is that this is supposed to be filed every year. There are different levels of difficulty and sort of complexity of the forms based on how complicated your organization is. It's based on gross receipts, which is like the amount of cash coming into your bank account. If you have $50,000 or less in gross revenue, it's very easy. It's just a quick postcard form. And then it gets more and more complex. The real key is that if you don't file for 3 years, you lose your nonprofit status. And it's extremely expensive and complicated to get that put back into place. So this is the one thing where we might be the PTA police for you. We probably will hunt you down if you haven't filed this, because it is so much. I've heard the worst horror stories of people trying to get their 501c3.
Yeah, you don't want to lose it. Trust me. I talked to PTAs that lose it. Dude, you don't want to lose it.
We do so much that you don't want to do that we at Minnesota PTA have provided. We provide a service to local units at no cost to you called file990.org. And you could just go to file990.org and you just fill it in. It's super easy. It's like a free service that we offer to you to use. I just filled one out for Minnesota PTA. I've done them for my unit as well, and they're super easy. But if you have any trouble with it, just email us and we'll help you. So, but this is great. And with the 990 form, even if you file it late, just file it. You just need to get it done. Late is better. Done is better than not done. So anyway, that's on here. There's also some PTAs need to file with the attorney. Oh, we have some big feelings here in my house, big feelings. So sometimes you have to file with the Attorney General's office. It's very few types of units that need to do that, but there are certain, it's only if you collect $25,000 or more in donations, if you hire paid staff, or if you hire a professional fundraising company, like a fund run company or something like that. And so that's not a ton of units have to do that, but this is something to be aware of. It's not a real hard form, but it looks like this. So if you fall into that category, that's a good thing to know that you should be doing. So then I also had some kind of best practices on here. So just having like multiple people on the bank account, multiple people seeing the bank statements, 2 people counting cash, like you shouldn't be bringing cash to your home, that kind of thing. Those are pretty basic things. You know, you should be doing, like we found that it's better to pay for consumable products instead of like permanent equipment or things, because then you'd have to pay for repairs and replacement and things like that. You know,
There's also liabilities that come with some of the permanent things that you might not want or you might not think of. So tomorrow when AIM is here, it's a good time to jump into the insurance webinar and learn about those permanent items.
yeah, so that's kind of, so these are kind of some things to keep in mind. I just want to make sure that we get through everything. One of the other things that people ask out about a lot is like sunshine funds. So that's like, you know, if someone at the school is having a hard time, or like, you know, a teacher has a tragedy or a family does, can the PTA put on a benefit for that family or something like that? So because you're a 501c3, you can do things like that as long as they don't benefit a specific group, or, you know, I mean, a specific family or specific person. So you can, so like, for example, you can't do a fundraiser for a specific family, but you can do like a winter clothing drive or something like that for all the kids at the school that need clothing. So just be aware of that. I mean, people individually in your PTA can certainly donate, but your PTA can't like be the one running it or be affiliated with it. And I put the link there. There's more information on our website on that. And then with a lot of like e-commerce things, we do have an e-commerce best practices spread or document, and I did include that in the resources that I linked there. So there's a whole like one pager there of kind of e-commerce best practices and how to handle those. So take a peek at that. I think that was kind of a helpful kind of way to think through. I know I'd always kind of wondered, like, how do you do a debit card in a responsible way, that kind of thing. So this kind of walks you through it. And then as far as like fundraising rules of thumb, we do kind of encourage you to do, like, just to make sure that your PTA isn't just a fundraising wing, that you're really doing, you know, things that fit really with the purpose of PTA as well. So, you know, you have a purpose, that you're really using that money that you're earning for the mission. That's kind of what the spend the money within 3 years is. It's a rule of thumb. It's not a, you know, these aren't, again, like the police, we're not the PTA police. We're not going to come get you if you don't, but these are just kind of suggestions, and that, you know, you offer community events or other things other than, you know, just fundraisers, and that you find fundraisers that fit your community. A lot of times your fundraiser can also be some kind of additional, you know, fun event. All right, as Amber mentioned, insurance is important. So there are various kinds of insurances that most PTAs, we would encourage your PTA to get insurance, particularly the fidelity bond coverage, and then the directors and officers insurance, I think, are the typical ones. There is an insurance workshop tomorrow night called Insuring Your PTA, and we would strongly encourage you to attend that, or at least watch the recording. The head of AIM Insurance Company, and then that would be good. We did get a question. Is it in writing anywhere that the money shouldn't be taken off of school property? Yeah, it shouldn't be taken to your house. It should go straight to the bank.
So I don't think it's in writing anywhere per se. You might find some guidance in national PTA's writing, but it is considered a best practice
Yeah.
that money doesn't go home. It goes straight from the school to the bank. If
But
it can't,
I need something in writing. Our principal doesn't allow us on the property.
okay,
So we don't have a treasurer. I'm president, so I've been doing it. And the rest of the PTA is really upset that I won't do cash related fundraisers and I'm doing them online only. And I didn't know if we had something that I could prove to either the principal to let me in the building or the rest of the PTA so they understand why I'm
I
refusing to do it.
see. Yes, because of the pandemic, you're not allowed on school grounds.
And I don't believe he's letting us back next year is the sound of it too. So
Well, I mean, ultimately that does affect whatever kind of, support is coming into the school. If you can't have any kind of cash fundraisers because you don't want to handle cash, there's a liability there for you.
so I didn't know if there was something in writing that helps me either convince the principal to allow us like in the front office or convinces the rest of the group that we're just going to have to do virtual.
Do you guys carry insurance?
No.
Okay, you don't carry insurance. Okay, so AIM in particular, because they insure over half of our PTAs in the state. And just to really quickly touch on this is that you will lose your coverage if something happens where you didn't abide by certain best practices. So it's written in AIM's policies, if you do carry insurance, that you can't carry cash home. And that you have to have dual signers on your checks because that's another area. And there's all kinds of best practice wording out there. Why don't you shoot me an email regarding that topic and we can kind of, Rachel and I can tag team that and see what we can come up with for you.
Perfect. Thanks.
Yeah. And then Emily asked, how long do we need to keep receipts? And I don't know the answer to that. I feel like I should.
So you should keep all your financial records 7 years. And I highly, and this is what I do in the state office, I Xerox any receipt. The original receipt goes back to the person who gave it to you because those receipts will fade after like a year. We do have a national PTA record of retention for which documents should be kept and for how long. So if you email me at mnpta@mnpta.org and just ask for the record of retention, I will get that to you.
All right. And Stacy, so we only have a couple minutes. And Stacy has a question about insurance. If we might have a record of your insurance, we don't typically, but there might be a few units that told us. So Amber, I don't know if she emailed.
Yeah, we probably wouldn't have that. You might want to check and see if it was logged in Member Hub. Otherwise, you could call AIM directly. That's probably one of the only two that we would refer out for insurance. It's typically AIM. So you could just call them and ask them if you're covered under their policies.
Yeah, or you would have paid a premium.
Yeah, you might see that.
I want to tell you real fast before they kick us out.
Sure.
So I did include here, National PTA has really good resources. So they have, and I've linked it here, but they have when you go there, they have a local leader kit. And then in here they have they have a local leader kit, and then they have a PTA Finance 101. And then in here they have templates and tools, and they have the Finance Quick Reference Guide, which I included in the resources. It's really beautiful and goes through everything. It just goes through a ton of different resources. And then it also has in here all these downloadable tools. So it has a sample budget, a sample annual report, the monthly treasurer report, that kind of thing. So it has all sorts of things here. So that had a ton of resources. And then on our website, we do have some financial resources under COVID-19. And then this is where you can contact Amber and me as well. And then I just wanted to tell you about those resources. Did anyone else have any questions that we didn't get to on here?
Can we copy the link out again for the resources?
Yes. Let me find that.
Yep, National PTA does have a ton of treasurers trainings, e-learning, templates, all kinds of stuff. You do have to create a login profile for National PTA's website, but it is very worth it because the resources that they have on their page are amazing.
Yeah, especially this one, like that finance, that local leader kit that I included there is so good. Like I was pretty impressed with this thing. So this is what I included in there. Can you see it now? It's like a finance quick reference guide.
It's so pretty.
It's like really pretty, but it goes through, you know, it talks about insurance in here too, but it has, you know, all sorts of really good, talks about your first 30 days as a treasurer and budgeting and things like that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it definitely kind of goes through all sorts of information.
What about the requirement for filing with, I think it's the Secretary of State annually?
Yeah, so every PTA does have to file with the Secretary of State. If you are not filed with the Secretary of State right now, connect with me and let me know and I'll help guide you through that process. You do have to renew it annually as well, but the renewal is free, but there is a charge to file initially. It is $70 in paper.